The final Dawntrail Ultimate is releasing really soon, and in the biggest thematic shift since Ultimate first released in late 2017, it's Kefka. Instead of following the trend of MSQ then raid for an expansion or vice versa, Square Enix have done something entirely new. They've gone back to an old raid series and tapped into a random final turn boss that didn't get much of a highlight in the past, and have made the promise that they will develop a full fight around him, one that should match the scale of his menace from Final Fantasy VI, one with theming that they've stated as being quote-unquote meta. Today I'm going to be breaking down the Kefka Ultimate trailer, discussing what mechanics and surprises we could have in store, and theorising what on earth Naoki Yoshida meant when he referred to it as meta. There have been a couple of interviews with questions pertaining to Ultimate as well that'll help to build more of a picture of what we can expect. This video is sponsored by Crystal of Atlan. If you're into fast-paced action RPGs, Crystal of Atlan is celebrating their first anniversary now. Coming alongside it is the brand new class, Karma Slayer, which is built for aggressive, high-impact combat as the new third branch of the Swordsman. And as you can see, it looks really flashy and satisfying to play. There's also a new major collaboration with Nier Automata, including a huge selection of new weapons and outfits to allow you to customize your appearance to resemble that of 2B and 9S, as well as collaboration pets, mounts, miscellaneous rewards, and a new world boss. They've also added the brand new homestead system, where you can customize and upgrade your own island domicile without limits. To accompany it, there is of course a ton of new content with events, free rewards, new outfits, plus co-op dungeons and team battles for up to 8 players. Crystal of Atlan is a cross-platform magic punk MMO with a really interesting blend of magic and tech in its visual style and moment-to-moment gameplay. But more than anything, the combat is where it really shines. It features smooth, high-speed combos, aerial combat and over 20 skills per class that you can mix and match to create custom builds, thanks in no small part to the branching class design that puts choice at the forefront. There are 25 classes, all available from the start, no waiting around, and you can just jump in and lean into your preferred playstyle immediately. It's available on iOS, Android, PC, PS5 and Steam, and you can grab it for yourself using the link in the description. Thank you so much again for sponsoring this video. So before I dive too deeply into the trailer itself, I want to bring up this interesting interview answer Naoki Yoshida recently had pertaining to the development of the new Ultimate, and why they decided to break from tradition in the first place. In discussing why Kefka was chosen for the Ultimate, Yoshida said the following: "In terms of Ultimate content, we have a very limited number of developers who have handled such content within our battle encounter team. Because we have a limited number of people who can create Ultimate content, they kind of take turns, or somebody raises their hand if they want to do the next one. And the person came up and I asked them, okay, so what is your theme for the Ultimate? What do you want to pitch for me? And the person in charge said, I really want to do Kefka. So it was that person's idea. And of course, he's a very big fan of Final Fantasy VI. He also worked on the original Kefka fight in the Interdimensional Rift, both normal and savage mode. He came to me and he said, I can make something better. Let me do Kefka again. So it's this almost unnatural love for Kefka that brought this about. Now this is really interesting because of one simple factor. They decided to make Kefka into an Ultimate encounter because the lead developer wanted to, and not due to any extraneous circumstances. Nothing else mattered but that the developer had a clear vision on how to expand and improve on the base fight they already created. And considering that I see God Kefka as one of the best savage fights for the time that FF14 has ever put out, it's fair to say that I'm pretty excited to get my hands on it on June 2nd. I often worry about Ultimates and crossover raids that there's some kind of quota that needs filling when it comes to specific inclusions, and that could have the unfortunate side effect of diminishing the creativity they could put into it. You can't exactly develop and design without limitation when you need to hit all these specific tick boxes on inclusions. This is clearly not going to be that. More than anything, it makes me curious as to whether it will really be all Kefka, or if we'll see other bosses fill in the gaps from elsewhere. They also delivered a strange, non-committal hint about the secret and overarching puzzle of the encounter by saying that, I'm sure those who have either watched or played Ultimate content will know this, but with Final Fantasy XIV, it's not just a simple battle and not just an encounter, but it also incorporates puzzle solving almost. Some sort of gimmick that you have to get through and solve. Because there are so many elements kind of intertwined in this fight, with the puzzle solving, the character that is Kefka, the battle encounter, and the fight itself, they are all just so closely tied together. And as the game producer, I should be promoting this fight, telling you what's good about it, but I really want the players to experience this sort of surprise. I want to prioritize their experience. My first question is, what on earth could the theme be? Is it really all Kefka? I mean, it's fair to say that we can definitely expect both Kefka and God Kefka from Savage, as well as a completely new form we've not seen before, including from any previous Final Fantasy. But what else? That's like 3 phases. They will either be reconfiguring mechanics in a very unique way to stretch out the runtime, or they'll be pulling in A, motifs from other encounters, or B, other bosses entirely to make up the full arsenal. The obvious prediction leads directly to the Warring Triad. They're in FF14 currently, though they don't link in any direct way to Kefka himself. With that said, Yoshida did state that the theme is meta, and the Warring Triad and the Tower of the Gods do indeed link to Kefka in his game of origin, Final Fantasy VI. That would be the most obvious inclusion, in my opinion, but others have theorized that it could instead be utilizing leftover bosses from the Omega series that haven't yet been represented in Ultimate. Neo Exdeath, Guardian, Chaos, Midgard-Sorma, Halicarnassus, and so on. Another party is of the opinion that it could instead be a final boss gauntlet-style fight. Whilst I think all of the ideas do have merit, my opinion edges slightly towards a different concept that can easily pull the threads from all of them. Kefka breaks the fourth wall and becomes aware that he's from another world and has been pulled into the interdimensional rift by Omega, and instead decides to free himself from the shackles of the role he was supposed to play, and instead play his own game entirely. He takes over the simulation and uses it at his whims to create a really messed up Ultimate fight. This could go in all different directions, like him taking others from the interdimensional rift, other final bosses, the Warring Triad, or even more. Like, imagine how insane it would be if he used the power of the interdimensional rift to pull in foes from other Ultimates, to use them as marionettes for his trio-style challenges. Something so off the wall and silly fits with his persona and the thematics of his current in-game mechanics. I'm expecting to see somebody as iconic as Exdeath, whatever form it takes, and I do believe the Warring Triad are a very high possibility. Everything else is up in the air, but I do think it's just a very exciting concept. And the fact that I can see so many different directions that this could possibly take means that there are many more that I didn't anticipate. It's a good time to be excited about the game, with so much possibility on the horizon. The puzzle, though, what could it be? The best prediction I can give without seeing the fight itself is to look at Kefka as a character. Kefka in Final Fantasy VI was the court mage of the Gestalian Empire, a living experiment. He had been augmented into a Magitech knight, giving him the ability to use magic in a world that no longer contained it. However, the process was not yet perfected, and the infusion damaged his mind, transforming him into a maniacal harlequin. Throughout the game, he absorbs the power of Espers and the Warring Triad to become his ultimate goal, a god, the god of magic. Upon his eventual defeat, magic is drained from the world completely. Kefka is the ultimate representation of nihilism. There are a lot of thematic ways they could play into this storyline in a fight, whilst still making it fit FF14 nicely, and I'd really like it if they at least tugged at these motifs a little. What if, for example, the overarching puzzle was to bring together the magical elements to restore magic to the world, each acting as their own small puzzle within each phase in much the same way as the Primal Awakenings do? What if the final phase of the battle is Kefka at full power? Beyond just being a god, he has healed his fractured mind and become Kefka perfected, and a new form has been created around that core idea. What if we have to protect the warring triad during mechanics by fulfilling their requirements in certain ways, preventing Kefka from achieving his overall plan? It's all very exciting. I loved Dragon Song's Reprise so much because it told a real, worthwhile, original story within the spectacle. No other Ultimate has come close to grabbing those reins quite like it, and I'd love to see Dancing Mad Ultimate take a real crack at it if possible. They also showed a short trailer. It may not look like it has anything new whatsoever, but I do think that's a little bit deceptive. Firstly, here, we can see that he's telegraphing mechanics you know from Savage, spreads, stacks, and so on. But Kefka's gimmick in his first phase is that he has the option to lie about mechanics, and that as a result they will instead play out in the opposite manner. So a lie stack is a spread, and a lie spread is a stack. If he lies about an AoE indicator, that is actually the safe zone. In Normal and Savage it doesn't go too far beyond that, but you're never loaded up with multiple elements. However, in Ultimate, that is not the case. You can see here in the trailer he has 2 rings around him at once. The ice element corresponds to these big conal attacks he's using, and these are true. But there's also what we can presume to be a fire ring at the top, with the question mark that shows it as a lie. In combination with that, players have spread markers which we can tie to the fire and then make the assumption that this is a lie spread, which means players will need to stack up and avoid the ice indicators. If the ice was a lie instead, they would need to spread out inside the cones, or if both were a lie, they'd stack inside the cones. I think these lies are going to play a big part in what makes Dancing Mad Ultimate difficult, as players will need to use their discernment and their memory to solve these big interlayered puzzles of truth and lie, and pick out the correct components that will weave them a safe path. Like, imagine for example in every phase, Kefka leaves one single mechanic that is a lie, and you will need to remember that all the way up until the end of the fight, where you then piece together the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, phase 5 lies all together to find this one singular safe spot that will get you through the last phase. The statues are present in both phases too, and these tether to players with each side of the tower offering different mechanics. These in Savage take the form of sleeps, forced marches that cause them to attack allies, knockbacks, and rocks that shoot and force a knockback on any nearby players that are not the target of the attack. In Ultimate, these will absolutely make a return, and I expect they'll do completely new mechanics that fit the name of the Tower of Gods. They also showcase a new permutation and combination from God Kefka. So this is Trines, a simple sequence of exploding AoEs that you can somewhat liken to exaflares because they detonate in sequence, although they don't move. They will drop down in 3 sets and explode in the same order. In Ultimate, this is combined with Wings of Destruction, a double tank buster targeting closest and furthest that hits with a huge circle AoE, leaving safe space heavily limited. These busters don't usually happen during Trines, instead occurring afterwards or before. That may seem like there's all there is. Do the buster during Trines, but actually this mechanic has changed more than it seems upon first glance. Trines in Savage are very fixed. They will always spawn in sets of 2, then 2, then 3, for a total of 7, but in Ultimate they are clearly different. Instead, it seems that from the Ultimate trailer, at least in the one example we saw, they explode 3, then 1, then 3. The sizes of the sets are different, which makes the type of dodge you can set up and plan for different as a direct byproduct. Now, you can always set up multiple 3-to-1 dodges in multiple spots if you create a good priority system for the group, versus the far and close tank, which makes it far more realistic to actually execute. Now, it's gone from a see mechanic do mechanic challenge to one you actually need to develop a strategy for. I'm especially excited to see what they do with Kefka's head mechanics actually, which are present in Savage as well. In Savage, you need to kite these heads before soaking them, delaying the soak until you've received delayed healing due to a debuff. In Ultimate, I think these will have a plethora of different mechanics, and will act as the core concept of some of the trios. Like imagine having different shaped cleaves, deformations or more tied to heads, and players must kite them whilst dealing with their heads in pairs or sequence one after another, and at the same time avoiding attacks from the boss. It's the kind of design Dawntrail leans into a lot. Rather than being difficult to understand, the timing of execution is what takes up most of the mental stack, and finding that cadence that makes it comfortable is where the nuance would lie. It would be interesting to do, I think, and quite fun to do right. The fight comes out in less than 2 weeks at this point. As a small self-promotion, if you want to watch progression, I'll be streaming long raid days like 14 hours plus of blind prog until my static clears, from when it releases on June 2nd over on Twitch until when we do clear. And if you want to drop in, that would be really amazing. I can't wait to see the fight myself. I kind of like this release timing for Ultimates, honestly. Point 1 and Point 5 bookending an expansion and giving you a really chunky piece of raiding to get into firstly early in the expansion, and then later before a new expansion to let you properly appreciate all the systems. With Evercold being the next major raiding release after Dancing Mad Ultimate, this is one final opportunity to push the current versions of jobs to their limits before everything changes in January 2027.